Ladies and gentlemen, the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight. Which ones are they? Same ones, right. At them. Anti-aircraft people were very egalitarian and shot at anything, so the stripes were taken off relatively shortly after D-Day. Is now configured as a later Mark, the Mark II, with 4 20mm cannon in the wings and the darker colouring. Spitfire is a Mark V, and you'll have the pleasure of seeing this afternoon several different marks of Spitfire, so you can make a comparison and see the evolution of the airframe through the wartime years.
Oh, hello.
Hello, hi.
Glad to see you
again.
ABMF, of course, is staffed by serving officers, and they give up their time on the weekend to come and entertain you and the rest of the country with a large number of displays over the season. I reckon now coming round for a low pass. Has the honour of being the first monoplane in RAF service and the first to include 8 machine guns in its armament. It first flew in November 1935, and Tommy Sopwith, who was the chairman of Hawkers, immediately ordered production of 600. After the Battle of Britain, the Hurricane found further use in doing what were known as rodeos or rhubarbs. Rhubarbs particularly were fighter sweeps across northern France, making life very uncomfortable for the Germans. As the war progressed, they fulfilled the same role for the Air Force of the Middle East, working in support of the army, where they were very successful indeed. That's where the cannon fitments come in. The Hurricane was strong and reliable, and later marks actually included 40mm cannons at each wing, and even, on some extreme cases, a 75mm cannon slung under the aircraft. I don't think they were very popular with the pilots because the recoil must have really affected the flying qualities of the aircraft. BPMF is based at Coningsby up in Lincolnshire, which is a frontline fighter station, but if you make arrangements, there are open days there and you can go along and see the BPMF aircraft on the ground. Very impressive workshop. Spitfire giving you an idea of the sort of rate of climb that it had and the aerobatic capacity of the aircraft. We don't fly these aircraft at top revs for obvious reasons. We need to conserve the engines, but it can still put on a very impressive display. A half roll off the top. And round it comes. I should mention that like many organisations, BPMF has its own website. There's lots of information there. So I would encourage you to have a good look at it. If you'd like to contribute, I'm sure they will be extremely grateful. A victory roll there. And what the pilot is actually saying is flying the Typhoon is alright, but I'd rather be in a Spitfire. Okay, the Spitfire coming in for its last pass. Give them a wave. These guys work very hard. those of you taking photographs, what the display pilots tend to do is to start at a comfortable height, and then when they're comfortable they'll start coming a bit lower. So you might get a better shot a bit later in the display. You could have recorded a brand new cover. One thing you might notice about the Thunderbolt is the similarity between the shape of its wing and that of a Spitfire. The difference is that the I've been asked to speak up a bit. I hope that's all right. The curve to give you the full wing shots. Some lovely sun. The show here today. Wing waggle. So grateful thanks to Stu Goldspeed for bringing the P-57-47 down here today. A little bit of drift there. Majority of the wing is actually a fuel tank as well, which is huge range and Victoria Crossing. One of them is Sean Cockshott, who passed away only recently. He attacked some Sunshine submarine, but still sustained 72 injuries. So we're both fighting for their life, anything can happen. Catalina was lucky to get back to his place. The curious profile of the cockpit area, very reminiscent of a venomous snake in my mind. The other VC that was won was in addition to discovering the the Bismarck, it was also Canadian Navy aircraft rather that warned of the Japanese approach on Midway and helped the Americans win the Battle of Midway, a crucial battle in the Pacific War. We're coming in now with its amphibious side. When it landed on water, the wings needed to be stabilised, and that's why these boats have come down, and this would be the configuration in which it would land on the water. Hands of the Plain Sailing Management at Duxford, where it's been based ever since. You'll notice it carries a name on the side, Miss Pickup, and that refers to a role that it had right at the end of the war. And the Pacific side of the world, picking up pilots who've been shot down. Join the expedition to France that we call D-Day.
Oh yeah!
Catalina returned to Earth. Very smoothly done. Nice three-pointer. There's a little bit of crosswind today, so you'll notice some of the aircraft coming in, side slipping just gently to allow for the crosswind. Started life as the TSR-2. Which stood for Torpedo Strike Reconnaissance, hence the torpedo underneath. In Navy use it was known as the string bag. One reason, and that was because you could strap or attach virtually anything to it and the aircraft would still fly. Although unorthodox, the design proved to be very adaptable, and it actually has the distinction of being an aircraft that replaced its replacement. The successor was the Ferry Albacore, which was a bit of a disaster, and the pilots demanded their swordfish back. There we go, coming straight at you. It's a good time to mention Navy Wings. They are a charity, they are dependent on public subscriptions to progress with their restoration projects. So if you're down at Yeovilton, or you just want to go online, you can always make donations. To see a splendid site like this, it wasn't known at the time, but the Italian Navy had spent a lot of money providing itself with brand new ships. and many of those were moored in the harbour at Taranto. The Navy decided in 1940 that they ought to pay them a visit, and 21 swordfish went over to Taranto harbour and sunk 3 capital ships from the Italian Navy. The Italians thought we were very unfair because our aircraft were so slow that their predictor gun sights couldn't work. The aircraft then went on to feature in torpedoing Bismarck and disabling it to the extent of making it go around in circles through rudder damage. Later on they attacked the Gneisenau and Scharnhorst as they made the Channel Dash to get back to their home base in Germany. After that they got involved in the lighter aircraft carriers that we devised for convoys and flew in as convoy protection aircraft. And then gardening, which was the British term for mine laying. They also destroyed more U-boats than any other single weapon. And according to the pilot, they also sank more German cargo ships than the British Navy. Do give them a wave. It's a little bit bumpy up there today, so he's doing very well to hold course. One of the things to consider with the swordfish is that where they were using them on the smaller convoy carriers, the pitch of the deck could be changing all the time, the direction of the ship could be changing as well. So actually getting your aircraft back on a solid surface was quite a task. Swordfish was very adept at it, stalling speed about 55 knots. The father of a friend of mine was an air gunner on Swordfish, and I asked him what the shortcomings were, and he said not many. It was open to the elements though, that was the worst bit. And I would imagine flying this over the Atlantic on a rainy night, or certainly late in the day, would have been quite a test of your nerves. Final pass. I think a bit of a wave, yes, from the guys. Magic. Days, and the result was a P-51 with a B, and that was powered by an Allison engine. The issue with the Allison engine was it didn't function at great altitudes, and it was a British engineer who suggested putting a Rolls-Royce Merlin in. The result is this. I've already mentioned the air scoop underneath the aircraft. This was designed to use a thing called the Meredith effect, whereby airflow could be magnified by the profile of the actual duct itself, becoming effectively another supercharger because it forced air in at greater pressure into the engine, and you've got a cleaner burn. So we need to thank North American's team of Dutch Kindelberger and Ed Schmood putting the whole thing together, and also we need to thank Mr. Ronald Harker of Rolls-Royce, who suggested putting one of their engines in this airframe.
Oh wait, this is really cool. Daniel! That.
Who was actually an Englishman but brought up in New York, who came over and flew for the RAF before moving to the American forces. Well, I must say, John, it's a pretty well-known fact that what really transformed the Mustang was the fitting of the Merlin Quite a strong southwesterly wind is working slightly against them, but you can see they're in a very tight formation. Tight formation flying is pretty tricky. You have to really keep your hand on the throttle and to keep your position on the leader. And they're showing how it's done here. Absolutely lovely formation coming towards you. The aircraft you can see up above, there above the clouds, that's not part of the display, I will point out.
Yes, I think it's EasyJet to Malaga as they get your flight radar out. So the Air Ministry of Russia, Czechoslovakia and Eastern Bloc countries decided it was post-war a time to get their aviation industry going. And of course sales abroad are very important, especially in the Eastern Bloc. And the Yakolev country were responsible for turning out these airplanes. And I'm happy to say I have flown the Yak-52, and it's like flying a bathroom. Everything's hissing and air-driven and steam and a bit like a railway engine, I thought. But it certainly flew all right, pretty docile, I thought, handled quite well. Everything. It's quite a long undercarriage as well, quite high off the ground. Get your cameras at the ready as this passing shot comes through. You may notice the registrations on the aircraft begin with the letter G, that's G Golf, that's a British registered aeroplane, anything beginning with G, hyphen and then 4 letters. These aircraft are privately owned by various people up and down the country who've got the money to afford to keep them airborne. Very expensive to operate aircraft like this. Never mind the cost of fuel. Maintenance is pretty high, spare parts, oil and so on. But the great contribution they make is to keep these vintage aircraft flying for your pleasure at air shows like the one here at Headcorn this weekend. See them just forming up on the north side there. There's a lovely shot as they come in head on. Just going by is Phil Hardesty, by day he's an EasyJet captain, so despite its slight ungainly appearance, it's quite a graceful aeroplane, as you can see as it goes through the aerobatic moments for you. Not used in combat, wasn't a fighter aircraft, more of a trainer. But many of the Aeroflot pilots who went on to fly started their careers in the Yak. One interesting fact is the fuel tank was very small to prevent any pilot leaving Russian airspace, defecting. Interesting little bit of information for you. Aircraft on the civilian register. I understand getting parts. Oh, a little hesitation roll there, very nice. And crisp. The great importance, of course, of aerobatic skill is in combat. So all frontline pilots are trained in basic and then advanced aerobatics, so they really can maneuver the aeroplane, understand how to adjust the power and use the controls correctly. And when they fly something more complex and much faster, say the MiG-21, they at least had some aerobatic skill under their belt, having flown the Yak. Trouble is, once you've seen one, very shortly afterwards you need another one.
Down now, down now.
What a lovely display. Quite unusual, but lovely to see 3 Yaks in formation like this. Beautifully flown. Pilots Hardesty, Luton and Turner, we salute you and thank you for bringing your flying iron here to the 2026 International Airshow.
This demonstrates the qualities of the aircraft very, very nicely, doesn't it?
Oh yes. Down the 10 runway.
Very nice, very smooth.
And the Yaks are taxiing back onto the, using the 28 runway. Get a bit of bounce there. Again, gentle on the brakes.
The bounce is built into the runway. It's to embarrass pilots.
I know, tell me about it.
Taxiing out for our next tribute. The book is on sale here today and can also be ordered online. So if you look for the blue flag on the Grub Street stand, that's where you can go. And if you'd like to get a copy of the book, possibly if you bring it over here, we might be able to get Rick a case of writer's cramp, because I think he'll sign a few for you. Anyway, it's a very interesting book, and it's the Battle of Britain about a fighter pilot's role.
Well, just take a listen to, that's almost music to our ears, the sound of 4 Merlin engines in tandem, absolutely beautiful. Rolls-Royce developed this engine under the tutelage of Stanley Hooker, who went on to work on the Olympus engine in Concorde, very well-known aero engineer. And this was a real game changer, the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, an awful lot of power, 12 cylinders, a very robust engine, would take a lot of punishment. And to this day they're still retrieving them from the ground, sometimes buried 20, 30 feet into the mud. Also powered boats and other machinery. Wonderful, great to see the sight and sound of this engine here at the Headcorn International display. And just quickly, I've just confirmed the title of Rick's book. I'll keep it short. It's a Battle of Britain pilot in World War II. There's a bit more, but that's all you really need to know. Get down to the Grub Street stand with the blue flag and have a look. Part of the battle and showed that the UK still had its air power. Three Hurricanes together, you don't see this very often, especially Hurricane Mark 1s. Very privileged to have them here at Headcorn. You've just got some idea of what a rear gunner in a German bomber would have been seeing and really not wanted to see. The other thing that you might have noticed is one of the aircraft has got a half and half camouflage system underneath, black on one side, white on the other. This was believed at the time by the so-called experts to be the right colour scheme for our aircraft. This proved to be totally wrong, and they went to duck egg blue very shortly after the Battle of Britain. So very talking with a couple of the pilots this morning about the layout of the Hurricane cockpit. Ergonomics were an unknown in 1938 and 39, so a lot of the layout is very contrived and certain things have been added on late and bolted onto the sides of the aircraft. So there's a real job in hand of remembering your way around the cockpit and where the controls are and how they operate. In his colours with all the details. As for instance, if you look carefully, you'll notice a small black lump on the front of the cockpit canopy. That lump was Stephenson's own addition. It's actually the mirror of an MG racing car. Because he realised that in the aircraft as it was, you had no rear vision. It was something that was adopted very, very quickly and also played its part in the Battle of Britain because it was the Messerschmitt behind you that shot you down. our first lady pilot, and the second one will be Isabel Rutland. So 2 lady pilots today here at Headcorn.
So what you have to do is come in at that lovely curve and take your alignment from the runway to the side of your cockpit, not from the runway in front of your cockpit. There we go, very nicely done. Wheeler landing because it's a bit hot.
Of course, you know my credentials, John, when I was a test pilot for Airfix for many years.
Yeah, yes,
We had to perfect this.
yeah, I must have your autograph after the show.
So the Iran. The sound of that engine is right through my liver. What's after it? After it.
Don't be misled. Pretty much the ultimate in synchronized aerobatics. The aircraft was designed and built by Water Extra in Germany, and you'll be surprised to hear that the aircraft is actually called the Extra. The airframe is more tolerant than the human body, so the only limitation on its aerobatability is the human body. Sound very sort of mundane. They're probably only 250 miles an hour at service ceiling 10,000 feet, but what you really can do in the first 10,000 feet. Designed and built to compete in the World Aerobatics Championships, and you can see it's the ideal mount. Very lightweight structure, lots of engine power. You're probably wondering why it's got radio aerials on the end of the wings. They're not actually aerials at all. In high G manoeuvres, you don't have any forward vision. Sideways. So those aerial contraptions are on the end of the wings, so the pilot can orientate himself on the ground, to the ground. Synchronized stall turn. Please don't try that at home. It takes a bit of practice. The response to the controls is instantaneous, so those tumbles are actually relatively safe in that aircraft. Look carefully. There we go, a very nice part. The hesitation roll just shows you how responsive the aircraft is. What happens when you stop? Both of these pilots are actually airline pilots in their spare time, but they don't normally fly these sort of aerobatics in your standard passenger plane. factor we do need to mention is the strength of the crosswind at the moment. These guys are fighting that and still putting on perfect manoeuvres. So a tremendous display. Manoeuvre going up sideways with the wind supporting. Now look at this, look at this. Full-size Wiesler Storch, it's very close to it. It's 75%, but it serves to replicate. Second extra comes home. Do wait until they've taxied in and they've got their cockpits, got their feet on the ground, then they'll be able to hear you. Because we know you want to show your appreciation and we want them to hear it as well, and I'm sure you do. So please wait until they've taxied in, switched off and got back on the ground. 100% replica. It's actually showing the same symptoms as the full-size machine. We're flying in. Go on, keep on applauding, they deserve it. Little cub getting airborne. Being flown from the back seat, which you can do.
Hello, not too much, I want more money. I must say, Michael is an old friend of the Headcorn, and his dad runs the Wingwalk company, so we see a lot of riches picking here at Headcorn. Well, I promise you that was some display by these guys.
Right now,
Absolutely magnificent. Great to see you.
what you're about to see is a reenactment of something that took place on the 11th of April 1945, when an American Piper Cub encountered a Fiesler Storch about 80 miles southwest of Berlin. The Storch was doing a reconnaissance mission. To a kill. Storch was capable of landing in astonishingly small spaces. As Max will tell you, it made an impromptu landing on a building in the middle of Berlin in 1945. The Air Ministry route when Anna Reich flew in Fiesler Storch to rescue Hitler. Storch also featured in the rescue of Mussolini from a hotel seen anyone look so unhappy at being rescued. What I also did, as the Germans had front-marched him out and put him on scorch. The aircraft itself rolled down a hill as was intended. It then hit a big stone, which was not as intended, and fell off the side of a cliff where it started to fly again. That wasn't intended either, but it did actually manage to carry the full load and get down the mountain safely.
The spotter aircraft, wasn't it, back in the Americans used them a great deal for
Kazivac as well.
at the Headcorn International Airshow, where the levels of which And here's the aircraft, Charlie Whiskey, just come in from Biggin Hill, and with its spare part that's so urgently needed. And Hawkinge. Oh, it's out of my mind for a second. So this is known as a Buchon 109, not the actual original Berlin-built.
This is where you see that sign above the bell saying, ring the bell and run like hell. That's what our pilots had to do at the sound of an air raid. But they didn't know how we used it. But what they did know was that it wouldn't give accurate readings at low levels. And so the Messerschmitt Raiders used to come in very low, and it was really only an alarm that would tell people that something was going to happen. show you the Spitfires on the tail of the Messerschmitt.
This of course was a problem in combat. 14 or 15 seconds worth of ammunition was all they had. They had to use it very sparingly on that gun button.
And one of the pilots in their books referred to a squirt. You couldn't fire for more than about 2 seconds because that would only be 7 bursts.
But quite a difficult thing to get the aircraft in your sights. Remember, they're turning, twisting, climbing, descending. The Messerschmitt's doing his very best to avoid the Spitfire on his tail and getting his engine shot to bits. Okay, here they come. Get your cameras ready. I think that Spitz maybe got him in his sights now. Looks like he's got him, John.
It does indeed.
Now what we have is the Home Guard standing by to take him prisoner. Don't know whether they're here today. Captain Mannering and his team. And he would have been taken to a secured prison, probably Maidstone in those days, interrogated, and the Red Cross would have been informed. What's so wonderful is we're able to recreate this scenario for you 86 years later here at Headcorn Aerodrome at the International Airshow for your pleasure and delight.
I think the Messerschmitt might actually try to land. He's got enough smoke coming out. No, the undercarriage not out. And the Spitfire, I think, is probably going to do a victory roll. Had he done that in battle conditions, he would have got a major telling off, there is a technical word for it, from his COO.